Hey, welcome. This is our Paracord cross session for our crag and rappelling class. So today we got two strands of rope. These ropes represent the two strands that we're going to use for our Paracord cross. So the Paracord crosses actually came across, I'd say about 3 years ago. We decided that we need to bring something like a pocket cross or a pocket memento back that can remind you of camp. And for rappelling itself, actually what we use is our rappelling rope that we retire and we put on a keychain. So we use that as kind of like a pocket memento for rappelling class. So that's important, and we can show you how to do that, but that's really just cutting and melting and putting a little key ring on it. So that's not what the class is today. Today we're going to actually teach you how to make these Paracord crosses. So me and Dave and a lot of contributors, so Dana's definitely contributed a lot of crosses this year, and we hope to definitely make sure everyone gets one. We definitely like making sure they're passed out, but we want to now teach you how to make them so it's easily just to pick up, and hopefully just pause the video if you need to or re-watch it, but hopefully I can show you how to tie a cross. Now, the bad part about this is not going to look like a normal cross because I'm using two strings that are not the same color. Because normally, when you look at all these crosses that we make, a lot of them are the same color. We use the same cord, same two for the two cords that you need. The two cords that you need are a 3-foot and 4-foot length. Now, the 4-foot length is the middle part, and the 3-foot length is going to be your arms of the cross. So the whole middle of the cross, if you're looking at one of these crosses, the top and the bottom, or like I say, the middle, is going to be the 4-foot string, where the arms are going to be the 3-foot string. And this is how you're going to differentiate, is by what I'm going to show you today, is by having two different colors to hopefully explain how to tie it. So the blue cord today is going to represent our 4-foot cord. So as you see, I laid on my workbench a 4-foot section, a 3-foot section. I actually marked it on my cutting board or my workbench because I use it so much. So what we're going to do is obviously lay it off. You would cut your cord, and when you're using Paracord, it's 550 cord is what we've been using. That's what strength. So 550 pounds could hold you on this one piece of rope. That's the whole mantra of what a Paracord and what the numbers mean with it. So when you do that, you cut it, you melt the ends so that it doesn't fray, doesn't come apart on you. Usually when we make these crosses, you should have just a little bit left over. So when this cross is tied, there'll be extra. We'll have to cut that off and melt it as well. That's where you gotta be very careful. So kids, obviously, if you're trying to, you need to have adult supervision for definitely using melting of the cord, or definitely cutting is very important, because sometimes you have to use a razor blade. Some people use scissors. I actually have a razor blade knife, so that's why it's important to have adult supervision when you're doing this, especially the younger ones. That's why in rappelling too, we actually only let the older kids. So senior campers was always what we used to do in rappelling class. So keep that in mind. Who knows, anyone could probably watch this video and pick it up and really do these, because really it's just a knot, and there's a couple knots you got to pick up, and that's the most important. So we're going to go ahead and jump straight into the cross. So like I said, this is our 4-foot, like I said, cut and cleaned up. We got a 3-foot cord, which is going to represent our yellow cord, like I said, all lined up. And then we're going to go to what I call it's called a crab hook clasp, with a little, what I like to call a loop, a half loop. This is actually antique brass. You can buy, there's silver ones. I know Dana likes to use that. You can kind of see in there's silver cross hooks, and there's many different colors. I know Dave's wife is also sells those, so if like a little plug for her, if you like to buy them, you can probably get them through Jenny. So we go ahead and take the 4-foot cord, and we take this. We throw the 4-foot cord, and it's basically going to be cut in half, so you need to have equal lengths. That's very important when you're first tying your first 2 knots, is equal lengths. So equal lengths basically mean when you put this little hook on, you need to have something that can stabilize it or basically hold it for you. I like to use this little ring on my workbench I just put up, or I even have put a nail down where it kind of stabilizes for you, and then just come down and make sure it's nice and even. take your next cord. This is your 3-foot cord. It's going to go underneath that cord. Now this is the best part about this knot. This knot, you can put it anywhere because it's going to slide up and down on this cord. Because this cord, your 4-foot cord, is not going to be part of these knots. It's just going to go over top and just basically go from top to the bottom. These cords are going to be your top of this cross and to come out to be the arms. So you're like, oh, well, you told me the blue cord's the whole cross. Well, the blue cord's hidden underneath that at the very top. And that's what these knots, you're only using this. Now, the initial knot goes as followed. And I'm going to go ahead and be nice and slow about it. You're going to take your left hand, toss it over underneath this cord. You're just holding it up, just left, toss underneath. You're going to take this cord over. See these two cords? Underneath. Now when you go underneath, there's this little hole sitting right here. You need to take this, and you can pick it up, but you got to make sure your cords are underneath. And when you come through, you tie it. Now you're like, uh-oh, now what do I do next? Well, you need to make sure these cords are the same length. So I put them together, and I pull up. And when I'm pulling up, I'm trying to make this initial knot. You need to have one knot of the string on the right coming to the back, and one knot of the part of the knot or the string coming to the front. And that should be on your left side. Left side to the front, right side to the back. And that's the knot you just made. Now as I'm pulling back, I'm using my 2 fingers to separate and try to kind of tighten the knot. And then I'm going to lay it back down, and I'm going to officially tighten the knot. So as you look at the knot, there's a loop, but here's your one shooting out the back and your one shooting to the front. So that's important because now this is all the knot is. You're taking this cord from the back, the one shooting to the back, you're coming it back to the front of the cords, bringing it over. Then you're taking this cord that was shooting to the front, you're going to throw it over that one, and then tuck it underneath the two that ones you're not tying with, and you're going to take this end and poke it back through this little loop you've made over here. And I know, you're like, wow, that's a lot. But really, if you think about it, it's the same knot. Now, when I tighten it down, I'm really pushing both loops on back and front together, or to the top and the bottom, so it helps cinch it down or tighten it. Now, you're like, well, it's all the way up here. Well, this is where you can tie this all the way down to what I call is the number of knots for each side. Now, this is very important because the cross is made up of different number of these knots. So as I call, how do we count the knots, is the string that crosses over on the cross. So as you look at this, is a good example. Every time you see a paracord come across, that's one knot. So as you go down right now, if you look at my cross, I have 2 knots done because I see 2 cords. I've only made 2 knots. So this is important because each cross has the exact same number of knots on each. And that's how we measure it, and that's how it always comes out pretty uniform. There will be some cords that are thicker that will come out a little bit thicker. Some people make tighter knots, so they will be variants in size, but you can get them pretty close by how many knots you use. And that's important because the very top, if you look at the knots that I'll use, it'll be 8 knots. That's a very important number to remember because this is what's going to form your cross. When you do the bottom up, it's going to be 12 knots. And then when you do the sides of your cross, it's going to be 6 knots. We won't jump too far ahead. We're going to do our 8 knots on this one to show you how to get to this point. So we got those 2 knots like I was explaining. We're going to get 4 more done. So like I said, we're going to take the rope that's in the back now. We're going to bring it back around over top, and we're going to throw it. We're going to take our other string, make sure it goes over top of that rope we just threw over. It's going to go underneath. You've made that loop right there. You get that hole. That's why I don't even flip it up. I just leave it right there because it's, like you said, just take that cord and poke it after it's underneath the other cord, your 4-foot cord, and back through. Like I said, and then you just take those two cords, pull them together, push down on your knots, get them nice and tight. Now I'm sitting here at 3 knots. I need to get 5 more in here because, like I said, I need 8 on top. So now I'm going to do what I call a little freehand. So I'm going to pull this up. And now I have it to the very top where I'm going to need it for later. Yes, I'm going to need all this string to make the cross. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to pick this up. We're going to see, does that look all right? we're gonna go ahead and tie some more. So like I said, that back cord across, over, underneath, and through. It's the same knot. There's not a single different knot that you're going to use for this. If I had Greenberger here, he would tell me the name of the knot, but of course I'm over here like, yeah, it's my cross knot. Like I said, the back cord across, over, under, and through. You're always going to start on the other side. So really you're pulling the same cord over and over. It's just going from left to right, left to right. And if it looks anything different, you just tied a different knot. You just flipped your cord around, or you started with the other cord. So like, say for purposes, like I would have to use this cord, I would do this cord. So when I went across, over, and then put it through, like, oh, that's the same thing, right? Well, if you look at it, now it doesn't look the same. See, oh, there's the one poking it back. Now I can do it, you know, oh, it's the same way. Like, oh, look. Why is it twisted now? Because there's not the first knot before this one was the incorrect knot. This is really easy because, you know, when we were figuring this out at first, we had to untie a lot of crosses. Because when we get to the finishing point, either there wasn't enough rope or we just had too many knots, so you had to learn how to untie it. So if you have to untie a cross, you have to change the lengths of the arms or maybe the base, that's okay. It happens all the time. So we're going to look back. We have the original 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 knots, so all clean, all good. So we're going to finish up and do 6. Like I said, over top, poke it through. Number 6. Over top, over, through. Like I said, I know I'm speeding through this now because obviously I've made enough of these. But what I'd like you to do, if you can't catch that first knot, reach out. I definitely can FaceTime, house party. That's the most crucial, important thing about life right now is we all need to get contacted. We all need to get things off our mind and maybe just figure out how to make a cross. And I'm okay with that. You know, go ahead and reach out. So now, if you look at this cross, we're sitting at, I like to call it the perfect 8 knots. So if I count it by groups, because you see it comes in V's, I'd always go 2, 4, 6, 8. So now, let me make the base. So now you have the 4-foot cord. This is important, because this 4-foot cord, as I hold it in my hands, hasn't been used yet. This is going to be the start of the bottom. We're going to go from bottom up now. So you're going to measure out a length. Now this is where some people will take an old cross and put it up against it, and that's how they measure their length. Like, all right, perfect. That's where I need to start my first knot. I have a pretty good fail-proof method that I've used that I like to share. And it's basically, if you look right where my fingers are at, now I think that's a little long because I usually like to go, when I bend this cord over, right where this little hook starts, that little loop on the bottom where I connected it, and it doesn't have a lock. That's not the locking part, it's just the part that holds the cross to it so it doesn't come off. I really go right to the top of that, right where that little pin meets the little hook, and I put my fingers right there, and I bend it back over, and this is where you start your initial loop. So I'm going to put it back down the table. I still have my fingers pinched. I'm going to take my left cord and put it to the left. I'm going to take my right cord and put it to the right. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a loop with your left cord. Make a little eye. And this can be a small or big. Obviously the smaller will help you stabilize the knot and not get it too out of place. So when you have it like this, you're over top of the rope that's going straight up, or the one on the right, it's fine, but you're over top of it and you leave it to the side. You take your other rope, twist it around it, and bring it underneath. So you're basically doing the same knot we were just doing on the other, but you're just creating your first knot. So it's underneath, you see the little eye hole, we're coming right back through it. And when you do that, you poke it through, tighten both sides as you still try to hold the knot in there, and you just cinch it down and make it nice and tight. You should have a cord to the back, and a cord to the front. It's that easy. It's easy. So when you do this, you can kind of, this is where your untying and tying methods and your checking and rechecking will help you, because now I'm going to check it, and as I look, I'm pretty much there. Now, if you look at where the knot ends, it actually is a little bit higher on this. I kind of wanted it down here. So what I could do, I can just kind of break the knot or roll it out and just tighten it a little bit more. So basically where I'm just rolling the knot out and just trying to basically cinch it down a little bit more. So I'm going to roll it back down. That looks pretty close to what I want. So we're going to start tying. So like I said, the one in the back is the one you want to start with. The one shooting out front is the one you don't want to start with. So the one in the back, you bring it back around to make your loop. You leave your eye hole, shoot it out. You take your other cord, you bring it down, you bring it underneath, and you poke it through. And that's it. Bam. Now, it's really hard to see, but if you can see, there's 2 ropes going across. That is our first 2 knots. And you just keep going down. So this is where, like I said, watching the very front or very first part of the top can help you maybe figure out the knot if you need to keep seeing it over and over. I think you pick it up pretty quick. That's the good thing about this knot. Like I said, that one in the back, over top of the rope, underneath, and through. You're now going to make for this on the way up to meet this part of the cross. You're going to make 8 knots. Hey, and we're back. So we got to our 12th knot on the bottom, which is very nice. So now you're looking at this cross, you're going, all right, it's a pretty wicked one. Well, obviously, when we make these crosses, like I said, we usually do one cord, one color. So that's where you get all these plain, straight one color cords. Like, obviously, they're pretty cool. Now you can get even more. You can do what I call a split cross. So that's where they'll split the colors, and we can do obviously a pattern where it's either on the inside or the outside. When you flip it over, it reverses. Pretty cool. Then where we're pretty much what we're going to do is going to make this cross. So this is when you use one color for the 3 foot and one color for the 4 foot. And what it does is you pretty much get one color from the bottom, like you see, and one color on top. Then it mixes on the arms. Now this is the funny thing about when you do different colors. You got to watch your patterns, because sometimes when you tie this like this one's not going to matter too much because this is a mixed cord. We just got to make sure these both are the same size, because sometimes these cords, when you're tying it, this could be yellow across, but this one's going to be blue across. So these on this side won't be the same. So when we tie this cross, we're going to have to flip one of these. So we're going to do a natural arm first, and then I'm going to explain the flip to you. Now I know that's a little different, but it's only weird because it's a cross that's multicolored. When you multicolor a cross, when you got to get these colors right, you want to try to keep the same pattern on each side. So like, it would technically be like this cross would have the camouflage in the middle and the flag in the middle, where if you flip it and keep it the same, like where the cords are now, you're going to have to twist one, which I'll explain. And hopefully you'll pick up. If you have a problem with it, like I said, just do plain color crosses. Then you don't got to flip it. So we're going to go ahead and dive into this side. It's the same thing like we did with the bottom. You're just going to basically do a measurement. Now this is very important. If you tie a couple crosses, obviously matching it up, figuring out the length. I have a specialty measurement actually on my fingertip I use. I've tied so many, it's literally my first knuckle. So I'm going to go ahead and pinch that, and I'm just going to take it down to my measurement for you. And as my finger would fit, it actually would be 1 inch. So, or just a little bit under 1 inch. But what I would say is pinch it. And then you got your 2 cords, your left and right. I'm going to put it down so you can see it. Same knot we've been doing. You take your left, make your loop, and throw it over top of your right. And then you take your right, take it over top. So you can bring it underneath now. When you bring it underneath, you poke the eye or poke the hole, and you come through and you just tighten it. Like I said, keep your finger on that rope and where you pinched it, so you kind of have a measurement. Now this is where, as I'm tightening it down, I want to cause that one facing to the back and that rope facing to the front. I'm going to come down here and measure it. Like I said, it's a little bit longer than an inch, so I'm actually going to want to cinch it down more. So I'm going to open up my knot and try to basically tighten it just a little bit more by pulling the strings through, and I'm going to take it back. Now also, you want to do this, you want to pull it out and stretch it so that knot is nice and firm. When you bring it down, like I said, that's pretty close to an inch because I'm going from, you know, obviously 1 inch to 1 inch. I'm looking like that's pretty good. So here's what we're going to do. We got first knot in there. So now we got to make 6 knots. 8 here, 12 here, 6 on each side. So we're going to take the one in the back, bring it back around, over top. One on the left, over top, in the back, through the hole, from the back, through. Tighten it down. And this is the fun part, because this is where the cross starts coming together. Now you got to fit 6 knots right here, and you're like, man, that's pretty tight. But you got to remember, when you make these knots, you need to cinch them down and push them over. Now this is also where you're going to figure out, when you make these knots, you make them too tight, there might be a gap right here. Then your cross's hand will be very floppy. You got to watch that. So that's where you might have to get to a point where, excuse me, where you might have to untie this whole arm to tighten it or make it a smaller distance because of your knots. And that's where, honestly, it's whatever you figure out works best for you. And these crosses are interesting because they're made basically by hand, and they were just crafted by how me and Dave's feel for these crosses. Now the good thing is, my boys last year in the cabin, they did a really good job of picking it up. I know I was very proud of how fast they did it, and they even explored more and got into bracelets and even more paracord tyings, which is pretty cool, because what happens is there's, you know, it keeps you busy, it gives you something to do. You know, this is something where I would love to see you send me something that shows you, like, something you tied or your very first cross you tied. You know, that makes me happy, because that sees a skill that I learned that gets passed on. So that's why we're really doing this. So like I said, I'm on my 3rd knot. I'm going for my 4th, 5th, and 6th on the arms. Like I said, just keep cinching them down, doing the proper knot, making sure it looks and is the same. So like I said, I'm even pulling it over, because you look, I don't have much room for my 5th and 6th knot. Well, that's okay, because you really want to get that 5th and 6th knot. Well, really the 6th knot is like really trying to cinch it in, because you're trying to make it nice and tight. You don't want the cross to really be flimsy, because over time the rope's going to stretch and it's going to be a little floppy, but you want to try to make these things as tight as possible. So now there's number 5 if you're counting the numbers of the cross or the numbers of the rope coming across. So I'm going to take this and cinch it down, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to take number 6. So back cord across, over top, behind, through the hole. And then as you see, this is where it's going to get tight. You just take these and really push that. You know, you need to take that top and bottom loop, and you want to push them up, not just let them go flat. That going up will help make it tight. So when you're tightening this, I try as much as possible. Sometimes you can use needle nose pliers. You can just basically take it, and as you see the loops are looping over, you just bring that cord up to that and just take your needle nose and roll it. And when you roll it, it should help tighten both ropes. So you can do it on both sides. Like I said, I do pretty well with my fingers. Like I said, sometimes it's nice to just make them super tight, especially after when you cut and melt these cords. Really, you don't want to make it too short, because you want to make that melt kind of a nice little piece so it doesn't slide back through that. These cords could fall apart. I mean, I've seen crosses, especially the beginning ones, they'll fall apart. You can retie these crosses though. You can use needle nose pliers to really make those small knots. So I've had times where you run out of cord, and when you run out of cord, you get to the end and you're really small, you can make that little loop and just barely bring that rope out, and then flip it over, just barely get that piece into that knot, and then basically use pliers to pull it through. All you need is just a little rope to make these knots. And if you got to get it tight, like so you can't get your fingers on it, use needle nose pliers. Those needle nose pliers are really good if you roll them. Or like I said, you can hold one with your hand and just one needle nose pliers, or use 2 needle nose pliers. You know, that helps. So now we got one arm done. We're going to go ahead and finish. So like I said, that was the same measurement. We're going to go 1 inch. This is where the twist is going to be important. So if you look at both cords coming out, if I did this cord, made a loop, and then did my first knot like we were supposed to do, the color's different. Now we have blue coming across and not the yellow. And we don't want that. So if you look over here, that's how this is. But it would change as well, so it's yellow across. That's all the pattern. So to prevent this, we're going to take that knot out. And we're just basically switching cords to make that first loop. And you're like, well, that's weird, that's different. Well, that's fine because it's really easy. So basically you take this cord and you're going to take this yellow cord. And you got to get your measurement. Like I said, I'm using my natural finger. I'm going to basically take this yellow cord and bring it underneath and then make the loop. But when you bring it from underneath, you need to put it over top of that blue rope. So that blue rope can go now over top of that yellow rope that now it's laying over it, underneath, and bring it back through that loop. So when you do this, you got to cinch it down to that spot, that 1-inch spot you need. Like you said, obviously mine got nice and tight. I got the exact measurement I need. I didn't have to retie it, which is important. You're not going to get it exactly right at first. It takes forever. Now, that's okay if you really think about it, because it's just all about learning how to make your knots. Now I'm going to go ahead and get down, check the 1-inch. Oh, that looks pretty close. Check my knuckle. I feel pretty good. Now I'm going to go ahead and make the same knots right over this. Now it's a little twisted. That's fine. You want to make sure that yellow side or the yellow across is what you're seeing. So yet again, that yellow cord is in the back. We're going to bring it across. Take that blue cord that's in the front, over top of that cord you just laid, underneath, through the hole, and tighten. 4 more to go. Same thing, the cord from the back, over top of that cord, from the back, through the hole. Number 3. And this is where we're going to speed through, because I feel like you feel pretty good about this now. Like I said, if you don't, rewind the video, watch it. Sorry about my voice. It's not an announcer's voice. I could really get some radio host, but we're not going to do that. We're going to finish what we're doing. So this is number 5. I'm getting really tight again. So like I said, really pulling it back, really trying to push it to the end. So I'm going to take this cord, like I said, it's in the back, so across, take the blue cord, over top, through my little hole I made. Now, this is the fun part. Just trying to get it all the way cinched down. Like I said, those needle nose pliers would have been amazing right now, but I don't need it, because we're done. Done tying, that is. So now you look at the cross, it's all done. So as you see, you'll have different cords sticking out different sides. That's okay, because now you're just going to clean it up. So you're basically going to take a knife, pair of scissors. I like to use the safety knife. Thank you, Lowe's. I definitely will hopefully not cut myself. Be very careful. You don't just need to apply a little pressure when you're using a razor blade or scissors. You want to leave a little nubbin. You don't want to cut it completely to the rope, because like I said, you don't want it to pull through. Obviously come down to each rope, make that cut, clean it up. I like to save my cords. One day, hopefully, just melt them all together and make one long cord. We'll see. We talked about maybe even making a cross out of the cord, but we found out the problem would probably be with a lot of the bumps on the road with the cord. It would cause it to be hard to tie. So, but if anyone wants to try it and send me a video or send me a picture, I ain't complaining. So I'm gonna grab a lighter. This is when we go ahead and finish up. And we're gonna go ahead and melt said spots. Doesn't take much. Like I said, you just need it to basically get all the fraying off. As you can see, that's pretty melted. You just go to each spot. Don't try to expose the lighter or the flame to the rest of the cord so it doesn't melt. Some paracord will melt really fast, at least the casing over the plastic that's in the middle. So that you need to be very careful with. And like I said, you really just need to kind of touch the flame to the tip. You're just trying to get all the fraying part of the cord to melt together. And to kind of make a good stop for that cord pulling through. We got one more left. And as you see, that is a cross. Now the really cool thing about this is this is a cross I actually don't even make. These crosses, because they look weird or different, they're okay. It's just, I like if I'm doing a 2-colored cross, I really like this pattern a lot. This pattern a lot to me is pretty cool because it's got the inside and outside. Then you flip it, and it's, like I said, really clean look. I really like this one. This one, if you'd like to learn it, go ahead and contact me. I'm not going to throw out all the details. Really, it's just about a cut or two and splicing and putting it together. And then it's really important, obviously, like I said, getting the same pattern going. So twisting the rope and really getting it to be the same pattern is important. So that, like I said, it's up to you to figure out. Maybe you're smart. If you can't figure it out, you reach out. Like I said, nothing wrong with reaching out. You know, all Camp's themes that Janny and Camp and the Breezes family and Booney and all the love that we've gotten has all come from teams and all the things that makes you happy. This is the point of a cross, is to keep it in your heart, keep Camp close, but also reach out. You know, use those themes, but use it throughout your life, and use it as a billboard or use it as a springboard to make your life happy. Hopefully we can spread the love of Camp by making more of these. Like I said, I love pictures, videos. Facebook me, hit me up on my phone. Like I said, if you have questions, you know, reach out. I know all my Crag members pretty much know how to do it too, so that's also a good thing. There's many resources. We thank you for doing virtual camp with us, and from rappelling class and all my teachers, we appreciate you guys and we love you. Snaps.